My daughter demanded I cover $75,000 in ridiculous debts. I disappeared and came back with $1.2 million in credit and investments. But what happened between those two moments nearly destroyed my soul. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell. And if you, for a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Chicago, in my small apartment in Lincoln Park. The sound of traffic filtered through the windows as always, mingling with the aroma of the fresh coffee I had just brewed. At 64, I had learned to find small pleasures in simple routines. My favorite mug, the blue ceramic one my husband gave me before he died, the newspaper folded on the worn wooden table, and the golden afternoon light streaming onto the balcony where I kept my geraniums. I was wearing my floral cotton dress, the same one I used for special occasions that rarely came anymore. I had carefully combed my gray hair, gathering it into a low bun as my mother taught me decades ago. My hands, marked by years of work at the family dry cleaner, trembled slightly as I held the phone. I was waiting for a call from Jessica, my only daughter. We had arranged to talk about the sale of my business. After 40 years of managing Hope Cleaners, the shop I inherited from my parents in a small neighborhood plaza, I had finally found a buyer. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to live out my final years with dignity. $75,000 that represented a lifetime of early mornings, of pressing clothes under suffocating heat, of dealing with demanding customers who never saw beyond their stained shirts. When the phone rang, my heart sped up, as it always did when I heard her voice. "Mom?" Jessica's voice sounded strange, cold, different from the affectionate tone I remembered from her childhood. "Sweetie, how are you? I have wonderful news. I sold the cleaners. We'll finally be able to—" "Perfect," she interrupted with a bluntness that chilled my blood. "I need you to wire me that $75,000. Today." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I set my mug on the table with trembling hands, spilling a little coffee on the embroidered tablecloth my grandmother had made. "I'm sorry. What do you need the money for, honey?" "It's not for me, Mom. It's for Leo." Her voice turned dramatic, calculatedly broken. "My son is sick. He needs an urgent operation in Houston. If we don't get that money today, he could die." The words hit me like fists. Leo, my grandson of just 8 years, the only one who still hugged me when I visited their house on Sundays. The boy with enormous eyes who asked me for Grandma's stories, who ate my grilled cheese sandwiches as if they were the finest delicacy in the world. "Sick? What does he have? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" My voice broke, tears blurring my vision. "It's very complicated, Mom. The doctors said that there's no time for explanations. I just need the money. Are you going to give it to me or not?" There was something in her tone that didn't fit. A false, theatrical urgency, like when she was a teenager and lied to me about her grades. But this was about Leo, my grandson. "Of course, sweetie. Of course, I'll go to the bank tomorrow and—" "No, Mom, now. Do an electronic transfer right now. I'll send you the details." In a few minutes, my phone buzzed with a message full of account numbers. My hands shook so much that it took me 3 tries to type correctly in the banking app. As I entered the amount, $75,000, I felt as if I were signing my own death sentence. It was everything. Everything I had to survive my last years. "Transfer successful," the screen read. "Is it done, honey?" "Yes, Mom, thanks." Her voice had suddenly regained its warmth. "I'll call you tomorrow to tell you how everything's going." "Us?" She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the most absolute silence I had ever experienced. The coffee had gone completely cold. The geraniums on the balcony swayed in the evening breeze, oblivious to the tragedy that had just occurred at the table where I had eaten alone for the last 5 years, ever since Richard died. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Leo's face, imagined his small body in a Houston hospital, connected to machines that I had just paid for. I got up several times to check my phone, waiting for news, waiting for Jessica to tell me how my grandson was. But no message came. The next day, when I finally managed to speak with her, the truth fell on me like a collapsing building. "Leo?" Jessica let out a nervous laugh. Leo is perfectly fine, Mom. He's at school. Why are you asking about him? The world stopped. My heart ceased to beat for an endless moment. But you told me he was sick, that he needed an operation. Me? No, Mom. You're confused. It must be your age. And right there, at that precise moment, I understood that my own daughter had just shattered my life with a lie. The following days were a hell of slow, painful realization. Every morning I woke up hoping it had all been a nightmare. But my phone screen brought me back to the cruel reality. Available balance $54. 40 years of work reduced to less than what a dinner cost at the restaurant where Jessica took her friends on weekends. I sat on the edge of my bed, on the sheets I had washed and ironed myself for decades, and began to remember, as if my mind wanted to torture me. All the moments when I should have realized who my daughter truly was began to surface. When she turned 16, I threw her a party that cost me 3 months of income from the cleaners. I sold my gold earrings, the only ones I had, a gift from my mother, to pay for the pink dress she had seen in a boutique on Michigan Avenue. All my friends are going to be so jealous, she told me while trying on the dress. Not even a thank you, Mom. I remembered when she married Mark, 12 years ago. I paid for the entire reception at the church hall. I went into debt for 2 years, working double shifts, ironing until my hands ached as if there were glass under my skin. Jessica chose the most expensive menu, the most expensive flowers, the most expensive music. It's my special day, Mom. I'm only getting married once, she would say while I mentally calculated how many shirts I'd have to press to pay for each detail. During the ceremony, when the pastor asked who gave the bride away, Jessica didn't even look at me. Mark had a father, so he was the one who walked her down the aisle. I sat in the front row, wearing the same black dress I had worn to Richard's funeral, watching my daughter walk away on the arm of a man who looked at me as if I were a necessary nuisance. After Leo was born, things got worse. Jessica needed money for the crib, the stroller, the clothes, for everything. He's your grandson, Mom. Don't you want him to have the best? Every time I hesitated, she would pick up the baby and place him in my arms. Look at those little eyes, Grandma. How can you deny anything to this face? I always fell for it. I sold the few pieces of jewelry I had left, took out a second mortgage on the house I had lived in my whole life, worked on holidays when other grandmothers were with their families, all for that boy who had become my only source of happiness, and for a daughter who had learned to use him as a bargaining chip. The hardest blow had come 3 years ago, when Mark lost his job at the insurance company. Without telling me, Jessica had used my house as collateral for a $20,000 loan. She showed up at my door with the papers already signed by her. She had my power of attorney for emergencies, and with Leo in her arms. Mom, if you don't sign this, they're going to take Mark's in my house. Leo will be homeless. Is that what you want? For your grandson to live on the street? I signed with tears in my eyes. For 2 years, I paid off that debt with the profits from the cleaners, eating rice and beans every day, forgoing my few arthritis medications that ate away at my hands. Jessica never asked how I was. She only called when she needed something else. Now, sitting in my empty kitchen, I understood the pattern. Every one of Jessica's crises arrived just when I had some money saved up. The school emergency for Leo when I sold my antique Singer sewing machine. Mark's medical emergency when I received my severance from the textile factory where I worked when I was young. And now this, the cruelest lie of all, using my grandson's supposed illness to steal my last savings. The phone rang, and my heart jumped. It was Jessica. Mom, how are you? Her voice sounded sweet, like when she was a little girl and wanted something. How do you want me to be, Jessica? You lied to me. You told me Leo was sick and... Oh, Mom, don't exaggerate. I just needed to borrow the money. I'll pay you back, I promise. Borrow? Jessica, that was all my money. Everything I have to live on. Well, you don't need that much anymore. I mean, what do you need money for at your age? You're not going to travel or buy a new house or anything like that. Her words hit me like slaps. She spoke of me as if I were already dead, as if my last years had no value, as if I were just a burden waiting for the moment to disappear. Jessica, I'm 64, not 84. I still have a life ahead of me I need to eat, pay for medicine, gas, electricity. Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. Besides, when you die, everything I have is going to be yours anyway. I'm just getting my inheritance a little early. Your inheritance? What are you talking about? Well, yeah, Mom. I'm your only daughter. When you die, everything you have will come to me. So, what's the problem if you give it to me now when I need it? The line went silent. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My own daughter was counting the days until my death, calculating when she could inherit what little I had left. Besides, she continued with that cold voice I had learned to hate, you've already lived your life. You were young, you got married, you had kids. Now it's my turn. I have expenses, responsibilities. Mark and I want to buy a new car, and Leo needs private English lessons. And for that, you lied to me about his health? It was the only way you'd give me the money quickly. If I had told you the truth, you would have started scolding me and asking 1,000 questions. This was easier for both of us. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. I got up and went to the bathroom mirror, the same mirror where I had watched myself age for 40 years. The woman looking back at me had swollen eyes, sunken cheeks, her gray hair whiter than ever. But for the first time in years, I also saw something different, a spark of rage that had been dormant for too long. That night, for the first time in my life, I didn't eat dinner. Not because I wasn't hungry, but because I didn't want to spend a single dollar on food. The $54 I had left had to last until I found a way to survive. I lay in my double bed, on the side where Richard had always slept, and I cried until I fell asleep. But in my dreams, something had changed. I no longer dreamed of Leo sick in a hospital. I dreamed of Jessica as a little girl, asking for my forgiveness for having become a stranger. 3 weeks had passed since the call, and my life had become a cruel mathematical calculation. For breakfast, I had a piece of toast with salt. For lunch, boiled rice and beans without any butter. For dinner, chamomile tea with a spoonful of sugar if I was lucky. The $54 had become $15, and every dollar I spent felt like a stab in my empty stomach. The rent on my apartment was due in 5 days. $400 that I didn't have. Mr. Peterson, my landlord for 20 years, had been patient with me when Richard died. But I knew his patience had limits. He had already warned me that if I didn't pay this time, I'd have to find another place. I sat in my kitchen chair, the same one where I had drunk thousands of morning coffees, where I had helped Leo with his homework on Sundays, where I had mourned my husband's death. Now it had become my throne of misery, the place where I counted and recounted the few dollars I had left, hoping they would miraculously multiply. The phone had rung several times during those weeks. Jessica, but I didn't answer. I couldn't hear her voice without feeling like I was suffocating in rage and sadness. Until one afternoon, when hunger was making me dizzy, I decided to pick up. "Mom!" You finally answered. "Why haven't you been calling me?" Her voice sounded annoyed, as if I owed her an explanation. "What do you want, Jessica?" "Oh, don't talk to me like that. I'm calling because Leo misses you a lot. He wants to know why you haven't come to see him." My heart constricted. My grandson, the only being in this world who loved me unconditionally without hidden agendas. The boy who would run to hug me when I arrived at his house, who told me about his classes, who asked me to make him grilled cheese, like only you know how, Grandma. "How is Leo?" "He's fine, but sad because you don't visit." "Look, why don't you come over on Sunday? We're going to have a barbecue in the yard. Mark bought some really good steaks from Costco." Costco. While I was eating plain beans, they were buying steaks from an expensive store. With my money. "I can't go, Jessica." "Why not? Are you still mad about the loan? I already told you I'll pay you back." "I don't even have enough for the train fare." An uncomfortable silence fell on the other end of the line. "What do you mean you don't have enough for the train? It's only a few dollars." "I only have $15 left, Jessica, from the $75,000 you asked for." "Oh, Mom, don't exaggerate. You must have more money saved somewhere." "I have nothing else. That was all my money." "Well, but—" Her voice became irritated. "It's not my fault you don't know how to manage your money." Her words left me speechless. Not her fault. After stealing everything I had, she said it wasn't her fault that I didn't know how to manage my money. "Jessica, I haven't been able to buy my blood pressure medication in 2 weeks." "Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic. You don't even need those pills that much. My mother-in-law doesn't take hers either, and she's perfectly fine. The doctor told me they were vital. Doctors always exaggerate to sell you more medicine. Besides, you're very healthy for your age. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking so much I had to sit on the kitchen floor. The cold tile against my legs calmed me a little, but the pain in my chest had become constant. Was it the unmedicated high blood pressure or a broken heart? I couldn't tell the difference anymore. That night, as I lay in bed trying to ignore the sounds of my empty stomach, I remembered something I had forgotten for years. When Jessica was 8, she got pneumonia. For 3 nights, I didn't sleep a minute, taking care of her, giving her medicine every 4 hours, changing the cold compresses on her forehead. On the 4th day, when she was better, she looked at me with her bright eyes and said, "Mommy, when you're old, I'm going to take care of you just like you're taking care of me." I cried until I had no tears left. The next day was Friday. I had to get money somehow or I'd be on the street by Monday. I left early before the sun got too hot and walked downtown. I didn't have money for public transport, so it was a 3-hour walk that left my feet swollen and my legs trembling. I went to 3 pawn shops. In the first, I offered my wedding ring. The man behind the counter examined it with a loupe and offered me $250. "It's 14-karat gold, ma'am, but it's very worn. Worn from 50 years of wearing it, of working with it, of remembering the man who placed it on my finger on the happiest day of my life." In the second pawn shop, the woman was crueler. "This ring isn't worth much, ma'am. Gold is down right now. I can give you $150, and that's just because I feel sorry for you." At the third, they wouldn't even look at it. "We don't buy such old gold," they said without a glance. I returned home with my feet aching and the ring still on my finger. I couldn't sell it. It was the only thing I had left of Richard. The only thing that reminded me that someone had once truly loved me. On Saturday, I called my cousin Hope, the only family I had left besides Jessica. We hadn't spoken since Richard's funeral, but I was out of options. "Grace? Hi, how have you been?" I told her everything, from the lie about Leo to my current situation. Hope listened in silence, interrupting only to make sounds of disbelief. "Oh, Grace, I can't believe Jessica would do that to you. How could she be so heartless?" "I need to ask you a favor, Hope. I just need $400 for this month's rent. I swear I'll pay you back." "Oh, cousin, it pains me that I can't help, but Miguel lost his job last month, and we're really tight on money too. If I had it, I'd give it to you without a second thought, but..." I understood. Either she truly couldn't, or she just didn't want to get involved in my problems. I didn't blame her. I had learned that people prefer to stay away from misfortune as if it were contagious. On Sunday, I didn't go to Jessica's house. Instead, I sat on my balcony, watching families walk down the street, fathers carrying their children, grandmothers walking arm in arm with their grandchildren, entire families leaving the neighborhood church laughing and talking. At 5 in the afternoon, the phone rang. "Grandma, why didn't you come today?" It was Leo's voice, small and sad. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "Oh, my beautiful boy, forgive me. Grandma wasn't feeling very well today. Are you sick? Mommy says you're mad at us." "I'm not mad at you, my love. I could never be mad at you." "Then come next week. I'll show you the drawing I made of you at school." When we hung up, I knew I had to make a decision. I could continue living in this agony, waiting for crumbs of affection from Jessica and occasional calls from Leo, or I could do something I had never done in my life, stand up for myself. That night, for the first time in weeks, I didn't cry. Instead, I sat down to write a letter that would change everything. The letter I wrote that night was simple. "Jessica, I need you to return my money. I have nothing for food or my medication. If you can't return all of it, at least give me back enough to survive this month." I kept it in my purse for 3 days before I had the courage to take it to her house. On Wednesday morning, I took the L train to the Belmont stop, near the suburb where Jessica lived in a new gated community. With my money, of course. The down payment for that house had come from the sale of my antique Singer sewing machine, an heirloom from my mother that Jessica convinced me to sell because you don't use it for anything anymore. I walked down the cobblestone street, past identical houses with their well-kept little gardens and cars in the driveways. Jessica's house was painted sky blue and had a small palm tree in the garden that Mark had planted last year. It looked prosperous, happy, like the home of a successful family. I rang the doorbell and waited. From inside, I could hear the sound of the TV and Leo's voice singing. My heart raced hearing my grandson. Jessica opened the door wearing a new brand-name sweatsuit and a blouse I recognized from the expensive stores at the mall. Her hair was freshly cut and colored, a treatment that cost at least $200. "Oh, Mom, what are you doing here?" She didn't invite me in. "I came to talk to you." I held out the letter. "Please read this." Jessica took the paper reluctantly and read it quickly, her lips moving as she did. Her expression changed from annoyance to open irritation. "Seriously? You're coming all the way to my house to pressure me for money?" "I'm not pressuring you. I'm asking for what's mine." "Grandma!" Leo appeared running from behind his mother and threw himself at me. His small arms clung to my waist with that desperate strength of children who miss someone. "Are you not mad at me anymore?" "I've never been mad at you, my love," I said, stroking his hair as I felt my heart melt. "Leo, go to your room," Jessica ordered in a dry voice. "The adults are talking." "But I want to be with Grandma." I said, "Go." The boy let go of me slowly, his eyes moist. He gave me a kiss on the cheek and shuffled away. Jessica closed the door behind him and came out into the yard with me. "Okay, Mom. Let's be clear. That money is already spent. Mark and I needed it for important things." "What important things?" "Things you wouldn't understand. Adult expenses, commitments." "Jessica, I have no money for food. I've been eating nothing but rice and beans for 3 weeks." "Oh, for God's sake, don't be so dramatic." She crossed her arms and looked at me as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "Besides, at your age, you don't need to eat that much. Old people eat very little." Old people. That's what she called me. As if I were no longer her mother, just a separate category of human. "I need my blood pressure medicine. The doctor said if I don't take it, I could have a heart attack." "Oh, Mom. Doctors always scare you so you'll buy more medicine. My mother-in-law is 70 and never takes anything, and she's fine." Just then, Mark came out of the house. He was wearing a new shirt and designer jeans I recognized from TV commercials. He looked prosperous, relaxed, like a man without financial worries. "What's going on?" he asked, though his tone made it obvious he already knew. "My mom came to pressure us for money," Jessica said, as if I were a stranger trying to extort them. Mark looked at me with that expression he had perfected over the years, condescending, as if I were a problem they had to solve. "Mrs. Sanchez, we've talked about this. The money was urgent. It's been used for necessary things." "What necessary things?" I asked, looking at his new clothes, the late model car parked in the driveway, the ornamental plants recently added to the garden. "We invested in a business," Jessica said quickly. "A unique opportunity that's going to make us a lot of money." "What business?" Mark and Jessica exchanged an uncomfortable glance. "It's complicated to explain," Mark said. "Investment stuff. But we're going to make so much that we can pay you back. Multiplied," Jessica added with a fake smile. "When?" "Soon. Very soon. I need an exact date. I don't have enough for this month's rent." Mark sighed with exasperation, as if I were an annoying child. "Look, Mrs. Sanchez, we're not your bank. You've lived your life. You've worked. Now it's the new generation's turn to prosper." His words hit me like a slap. "You've lived your life." As if at 64, I no longer had the right to exist with dignity. "That was all my money for my old age," I whispered, feeling my voice crack. "Well, think of it this way," Jessica said with that cruel smile I had learned to hate. "When you die, everything we have will go to Leo. So you're really just investing in your grandson's future." "When you die?" She said it so naturally, like someone talking about the weather. "Besides," Mark continued, "you can work again. You know people, you can find something. We have bigger responsibilities." "Work? I'm 64 years old. Who's going to give me a job?" "There are plenty of women your age who clean houses," Jessica said. "Mrs. Lopez, the woman who cleans here, is 68 and she's perfectly fine." I was paralyzed. My own daughter was suggesting I start cleaning other people's houses to survive, after having stolen all my savings. "Or you could sell the apartment where you live," Mark added. It's in a great location. You'd surely get good money for it, and you could move into something smaller and cheaper. That apartment is where I've lived my whole life. Where I raised Jessica. Where I lived with her father. Oh, Mom, don't be sentimental. It's just walls. What's important is family. Family. He talked about family while they were pushing me into poverty. Just then, Leo appeared at the door again. He had been listening. Mommy, why are you saying mean things to Grandma? His trembling little voice pierced my soul. Go inside, Leo. This isn't your business. But Grandma is crying. Get inside. Mark, take the boy. Mark took Leo by the arm and led him inside. I could hear the boy asking why Grandma was sad, and Mark's voice telling him not to ask questions. Jessica and I were left alone in the yard. The afternoon sun made her dyed hair shine, and for a moment I remembered the little girl she had been, when she told me she loved me and would never hurt me. Jessica, I said in the calmest voice I could manage, I am your mother. I gave you life. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. Do you really not care if I starve to death? She sighed, as if it were a very tiring question. Oh, Mom, you're not going to starve. Don't be so dramatic. You always find a way to get by. And what if I don't find a way this time? She shrugged. Well, whatever happens, happens. Life goes on. In that moment, I understood that my daughter had died years ago, and the woman in front of me was a stranger who had learned my name and knew my history, but who felt nothing for me. I turned around and started walking toward the street. Behind me, I heard Jessica shout, Don't be so dramatic, Mom. Tomorrow you'll get over being angry and everything will be fine. But I knew that nothing would ever be fine again. The L train ride back was the longest of my life. Every station we passed felt like another nail in the coffin of my relationship with my daughter. I sat in the priority seating for seniors, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly old. Not because of my age, but because of the weariness in my soul. When I got to my apartment, it was already dark. The city lights were turning on like little artificial stars, and from my window, I could see families eating dinner in the buildings across the street, mothers serving food to their children, fathers helping with homework, grandparents telling stories. Normal lives. Lives where family love was priceless. I sat at my kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't count the money I had left. Instead, I took out an old notebook where I had tracked expenses for years and started writing something different. A list of everything I had given Jessica and Mark since they got married. 5 Zalmer FORTHEDWNPAYMENTONTHEHEHOUSE IWROTEINMYSHAKYHANDWRITING 5,000 for the down payment on the house. I routine Mashaki handwriting. 3,000 for furniture when they got married. $4,000 when Mark lost his job. $2,000 for Leo's private tutoring. $1,500 for the used car they bought 3 years ago. The list went on for 2 full pages. When I finished adding it up, the total took my breath away. $48,000. Almost 4 decades of work handed over in 12 years of Jessica's marriage, not counting the $75,000 from the cleaners. In total, I had given them $123,000, a huge chunk of my entire life's earnings. I closed the notebook and something shifted inside me. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was something colder, clearer. It was the understanding that I had been an accomplice in my own destruction for years. That night, for the first time in a month, I slept soundly. I didn't dream of Jessica or Leo. I dreamed of Richard. In the dream, we were young again, dancing at our wedding, and he whispered in my ear, Grace, you are worth more than you think. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It was Thursday morning. I got up, showered carefully, did my hair in a way I hadn't since the sale of the cleaners, and put on my navy blue dress, the one I saved for special occasions. Today was a special occasion, the first day of the rest of my life. I left early and walked to the bank where I'd had my account for 30 years. I asked to speak with the manager, Mr. Davis, personally. Mrs. Sanchez, what a pleasure to see you. How can I help you? I want to report a fraud, Mr. Davis. I told him everything, From the lie about Leo's illness to the $75,000 transfer, Mr. Davis listened with growing attention, taking notes on his computer. Mrs. Sanchez, this is very serious. Are you certain you want to proceed with a formal complaint? Completely certain. I understand Jessica is your daughter. Are you aware of the legal implications? For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Mr. Davis, for 40 years I worked from 5 in the morning until 9 at night. I never stole a penny from anyone. I never hurt anyone to get money. My daughter stole from me using a lie about my grandson's health. If that doesn't deserve legal consequences, then justice doesn't exist. The manager nodded respectfully. We will proceed immediately. The bank will launch an investigation, and if appropriate, we will press charges. I left the bank feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: power. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had made a decision. I had taken action. The next step was harder. I walked to the nearest police precinct. The waiting room was full of people with similar problems: broken families, betrayed trusts, lives destroyed by those who were supposed to love them. When it was my turn, a young female officer attended to me kindly. Good morning, ma'am. How can we help you? I'm here to report my daughter for fraud. The words came out of my mouth with a firmness that surprised me. The officer asked me to recount the events from the beginning. This time, my voice didn't break. This time, I didn't cry. I reported the facts for what they were: a crime. Ma'am, are you sure you want to proceed? I understand this is family. That's precisely why. If I don't defend myself, I'm teaching my grandson that it's okay to steal, that it's okay to lie, that it's okay to hurt the people who love you. I can't be an accomplice to that. The report was formally filed that same day. When I got home, it was 3 in the afternoon. I sat in my kitchen and, for the first time in a month, I made a real meal. I took the last $20 I had left and bought ingredients to make the stew my mother taught me: ground beef with potatoes and carrots. The aroma filled my small apartment, and for a few moments it felt like a home again. As I was eating, the phone rang. It was Jessica. "What did you do?" she screamed before I could even say hello. "Hello, Jessica. Don't you hello me! What did you do? The police called me and the bank." Her voice sounded desperate, furious. But for the first time, I felt no fear. I felt a strange calm. I did what I should have done years ago. I defended myself. "You're crazy. I'm your daughter. You can't report me." "I can, and I did. This is ridiculous. You're going to ruin my life." "Jessica, you ruined mine first." There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then, her voice changed to that manipulative tone I knew so well. "Mom, please, we can fix this. It doesn't have to go to lawyers. I'm your only daughter. That's precisely why it hurts so much. I'll pay you back the money, I swear. Just give me time." "It's not about the money anymore, Jessica." "Then what is it about?" "It's about you respecting me. It's about you understanding that I'm not your personal ATM. It's about you realizing I have a right to live with dignity. But you could ruin my marriage. Mark is furious. He says you're an ungrateful old woman. Your marriage was already ruined the day you both decided to rob me. We didn't rob you. We borrowed from you. With lies about Leo's illness?" Jessica went quiet. "Besides," I continued with a calmness that amazed me, "if Mark leaves you over this, he'll be doing you a favor. A man who helps you steal from your own mother isn't a man worth having. You're crazy. You're completely insane." "Maybe, but I'm not blind anymore." I hung up the phone. That night, I ate the rest of the stew watching the news on my small TV. For the first time in weeks, the food tasted delicious. Not because it was particularly good, but because I had bought it with dignity, not with scraps of pity. I went to bed early, but before I did, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me was still old, still had wrinkles, still had gray hair, but there was something different in her eyes. It was no longer the gaze of a victim. It was the gaze of a woman who had decided to fight. Over the next few days, my phone didn't stop ringing. Jessica called at all hours, alternating between desperate pleas and threats. Mark also called, using a condescending tone to explain that I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding. "Mrs. Sanchez, let's be reasonable," he told me one Tuesday night. "Jessica is very distressed. Leo keeps asking why his mommy is crying so much. Is that what you want? To hurt your own grandson? What hurts Leo is living in a house where he's taught that stealing is okay, Mark. We didn't steal. It was a loan. A loan without authorization based on lies, with no papers signed and no repayment date. That's called theft. He hung up, furious. On Friday morning, I received a call I wasn't expecting. It was Officer Miller from the precinct. Mrs. Sanchez, I have news on your case. Jessica and Mark Sanchez want to arrange an out-of-court settlement. They're willing to return the full amount if you drop the charges. My heart sped up. Were they really going to give me my money back? When would they be able to return it? That's the situation, ma'am. They say they need time to get it. They're proposing a monthly payment plan of $500. I did the math in my head. $500 a month meant 150 months. 12.5 years to get my money back. By the time they finished paying me, I would be almost 77. And if they miss a payment, you'd have to start a new legal process each time they defaulted. I don't accept. Are you sure? It's a fairly generous offer considering the family circumstances. Officer, if I stole $500 from a stranger on the street, would you give me 12 years to pay it back in small increments? Well, no, but then I don't accept. I want the legal process to continue. On Saturday, Jessica showed up at my door. She hadn't come alone. Behind her was her mother-in-law, Eleanor, a woman in her late 70s who had always been cold to me, but now looked furious. Grace, open the door. We need to talk, Eleanor shouted from the hallway. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. What do you want? Eleanor stepped forward, pointing a bony finger at me. How dare you hurt my family? Jessica and Mark are good people. You are behaving like a heartless woman. A heartless woman? For defending myself against theft. It wasn't theft, Jessica cried, her eyes red from weeping. It was a loan. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Jessica, is lying about Leo's health to get money from me a loan? Eleanor looked at her, confused. What lie? What is she talking about? Jessica turned pale. It was obvious she hadn't told her mother-in-law the whole truth. It's not important, Jessica muttered. How is it not important? I insisted. Tell your mother-in-law how you asked me for $75,000 by telling me Leo was sick and needed an operation in Houston. Eleanor turned to Jessica, her eyes wide. You did what? We needed the money urgently, and you lied about my grandson's health? It was just a little lie. The money was for important things. Eleanor stepped up to Jessica and gave her a slap that echoed down the hall. You are a disgrace, using a child's health to swindle someone. And I was defending you. Jessica began to sob uncontrollably. Eleanor, please. You don't understand. Mom has plenty of money saved up. We just needed a little. Do you have any idea what you just confessed? I shouted. That you knew exactly what you were doing? That it wasn't desperation, but a calculated plan? Eleanor looked at me with an expression I had never seen from her before. Respect. Grace, I didn't know. If I had known my son was involved in this, your son is just as involved as she is, I said calmly. He also knew you had lied to me. The older woman turned to Jessica. Pack your things. You and Mark are no longer welcome in my house. You can't do that. Mark is your son. Mark stopped being my son the day he became an accomplice to a thief. Jessica looked at me with a hatred that chilled me to the bone. This is your fault, she said in a venomous voice. You are destroying my family. Your family destroyed itself, Jessica. I just refused to be a part of it. That night, Eleanor called me. Grace, I want to apologize. I had no idea what they had done. You don't have to apologize, Eleanor. You did nothing wrong. Yes, I did. I defended the indefensible without knowing the facts. Jessica and Mark will have to leave my house. I can't have people like that under my roof. And Leo. Leo can stay with me whenever he wants. That boy is not to blame for having such wretched parents. On Sunday morning, I got the call I was expecting. It was Jessica, but this time her voice sounded different. Defeated. Mom, we need to talk. Can you come to the house? No. If you want to talk, you come here. Mark doesn't want me to go alone. Then don't come. There was a long pause. Fine, I'll be there in an hour. When Jessica arrived, she was no longer the self-assured woman who had appeared at my door days earlier. She had deep dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was unwashed. Her clothes were wrinkled. She looked like what she was, a person who had lost all control of her life. "Mom, I need you to drop the lawsuit." "No, please. Mark says if this goes to trial, he'll divorce me. He's going to file for custody of Leo. He says he can't be married to a criminal." "Maybe Mark is right." Jessica began to cry. "You can't do this. I'm your daughter. I'm all you have left in the world. You chose to be my daughter only when you needed something. The rest of the time, I was just a nuisance you tolerated." "That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called just to see how I was? When was the last time you invited me to lunch without asking for money? When was the last time you hugged me when it wasn't because you needed something?" Jessica remained silent. "You can't answer, can you? Because to you, I only existed when you had financial problems." "It's not like that. Jessica, I loved you more than my own life. I gave you everything I had and everything I didn't have. And all you learned was to see me as a resource you could exploit. I can change." "No, you can't. Because you don't believe you did anything wrong. You think the problem is me, that I'm too dramatic, too demanding, too selfish for wanting to keep my own money." I stood up from my chair and faced her. "The lawsuit stands, Jessica. And it will continue until the justice system decides what consequences you deserve. Even if it means I lose my family? You lost your family the day you decided that stealing from me was acceptable. I'm just confirming what was already a reality." Jessica left in tears. From the window, I watched her walk down the street, talking on her phone, probably telling someone how her evil mother was destroying her. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time in years, I had chosen myself. 3 weeks after the final confrontation with Jessica, my life had taken a turn I never imagined. Officer Miller called me on a Tuesday morning with news that changed everything. "Mrs. Sanchez, I have excellent news. We found the accounts where Jessica and Mark deposited your money. They had a joint savings account they hadn't initially declared. The judge ordered a preemptive seizure of all their assets." My heart sped up. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means they will have to return the full amount within the next 30 days, or face criminal charges for fraud and larceny. We also found that they had applied for a loan using falsified income, including the stolen money as if it were legitimate earnings." "And is that illegal?" "Completely. It's bank fraud. They are in serious legal trouble." That afternoon, after hanging up with the officer, I did something I hadn't done in months. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. The woman looking back at me was no longer the same one who had cried in that kitchen 2 months ago. I was still 64. I still had wrinkles. But something was different. My eyes shone with a light that had been extinguished for years. My back was straighter. Even my style of dress had changed. That morning, I had put on a pink blouse I hadn't worn since before Richard died, and I had styled my hair in a new way I'd seen in a magazine. For the first time in years, I'd put on a little makeup. Not to impress anyone, but because I felt like it. I left my apartment and walked toward the city center. I had no specific destination. I just wanted to walk. In Lincoln Park, I sat on a bench in front of the fountain where Richard and I used to go on Sundays when we were young. There, watching the families stroll by, I had a revelation. For decades, I had lived my life for others. First for my parents, then for Richard, then for Jessica. I had forgotten who Grace was when she wasn't taking care of someone else. What did I like to do? What made me happy besides working and giving money to my daughter? I realized I barely knew. That afternoon, instead of going straight home, I went into a small bookstore I had seen 1,000 times but never entered. The smell of new books enveloped me like a hug. There was a self-help section and another for romance novels. Without much thought, I bought 3 books, one on personal finance for older women, another on starting a new life after 60, and a romance novel that looked light and fun. I spent $45 on those books. In another time, I would have felt guilty for spending so much on something unnecessary. Now, it felt like an investment in myself. That night, instead of watching the news, I sat in my favorite armchair with a cup of tea and started reading the finance book. I learned about investments I could make with little money, about high-yield savings accounts, about ways to make my money work for me instead of just spending it. For the first time in my life, I was excited about money not as something to give to others, but as something I could use to create my own security. On Friday of that week, I received an unexpected visit. It was Leo. Eleanor had brought him personally. The boy ran to me and hugged me with that desperate strength of children who have missed someone. "Grandma, I missed you so much. Grandma Elle says I can come see you whenever I want." "How are you, my love?" I asked, stroking his hair as my heart melted. "Okay, but Mommy cries a lot. And Daddy is really angry all the time. They say it's your fault." Eleanor, who had been waiting at the door, came closer. "Grace, I hope you don't mind me bringing the boy. Ever since Jessica and Mark left my house, he's been very sad. He asks about you every day." "Of course I don't mind. Leo is always welcome here." "Grace," Eleanor lowered her voice, "I want you to know I did something. I spoke with Jessica yesterday. I told her that if she doesn't return the money she stole from you, I will personally testify in court about what she confessed to me in the hallway that day." I was stunned. "You didn't have to do that, Eleanor." "Yes, I did. I'm 79, Grace. I've seen a lot of wickedness in my life, but what Jessica did to you is among the worst I've ever seen. Using a child's health to swindle, that's unforgivable." Leo showed me a drawing he had made in school. It was a house with 3 figures. Him, me, and what looked like a dog. "Who's this dog, sweetie?" "It's the dog we're going to get when I live with you." My heart stopped. "When you live with me? Grandma Elle says that if Mommy and Daddy don't behave, I can come live with you. Is that true?" I looked at Eleanor, who nodded discreetly. "I spoke with a lawyer, Grace. With everything that's happened, you could petition for temporary custody of Leo if the family situation continues to deteriorate. I would be willing to testify on your behalf." The idea filled me with an emotion I hadn't felt in years. Could I be a full-time grandmother? Could I give Leo the stability his parents seemed incapable of providing? That night, after Eleanor took Leo home, I sat down to seriously consider that possibility. My apartment was small, but it had a spare bedroom I had been using for storage. I could turn it into Leo's room. I would have to learn about modern parenting, about homework, about being the primary figure in a child's life. The idea both terrified and thrilled me. On Saturday morning, I made a life-changing decision. I went to the community college where I had studied bookkeeping 30 years ago and asked about courses for senior citizens. There was an Entrepreneurship for Seniors program starting the following week. "What are you specifically interested in?" The coordinator, a young woman with a genuine smile, asked me. "In learning how to make my money work for me. In being financially independent. In never depending on anyone ever again." "Perfect. We have a 6-week intensive course on small businesses, basic investments, and financial planning. Are you interested?" "I'm very interested." I registered immediately. The course cost $300, money I would have thought twice about spending before. Now I saw it as the best investment I could make. That afternoon, I called my cousin Hope. "Grace, how are you? I've been thinking about you a lot since our last conversation." "I'm well, Hope. Better than well, actually." I told her everything. The lawsuit, the asset seizure, the classes I was going to take, the possibility of Leo coming to live with me. "Oh, Grace, I'm so happy to hear you like this. You sound like the Grace I knew when we were young, the one who had dreams and plans." "It's because I feel like I'm waking up from a very long dream, Hope. A dream where I believed my worth depended on how much I could give to others. And what do you believe now? Now I believe my worth is in myself, in what I can build, in what I can learn, in the life I can create for myself." That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine I had bought to celebrate. The city lights shone like promises of infinite possibilities. For the first time in years, the future didn't scare me. It excited me. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable. I was sitting on the patio of the small cafe I had opened on the ground floor of a building in the Pilsen neighborhood, watching the afternoon customers enjoy the pastries I baked myself every morning starting at 5. Grace's Place had been my first business of my own, financed with the $75,000 that Jessica and Mark had to return when the judge seized all their accounts. The entrepreneurship course had been the door that opened a world I never knew existed. I learned about budgets, profit margins, digital marketing. I discovered I had a natural skill for numbers that I had wasted for decades counting pennies to survive, when I could have been counting dollars to thrive. Leo ran between the tables, helping me hand out napkins to customers. 3 months ago, when Jessica and Mark's divorce was finalized, Eleanor and I had managed to get shared custody of the boy. He spent the week with me and weekends with his paternal grandmother. Jessica lost custody after the judge determined that her history of financial and emotional instability was not a suitable environment for a minor. "Grandma, the lady at table 5 wants more coffee," Leo told me, approaching in the small apron I'd had specially made for him. "Go get the coffee pot, my love, but be careful. It's hot." I watched him walk toward the counter with that seriousness only children have when they feel important. In these few months, Leo had blossomed. His grades had improved, he smiled more, and he had made new friends at the school near the cafe. Living in an environment of honesty and hard work had transformed the quiet, sad boy I picked up from Eleanor's house. The bell on the door chimed and Hope walked in, just like every Tuesday afternoon. She had become my silent partner and my closest confidant. "Grace, how are sales today?" "Very good. We've already sold all of today's bread, and there are only 2 pies left. I think tomorrow I'll double the batch of cinnamon rolls. They're selling out very quickly." Hope smiled as she poured herself coffee from the community pot. "Do you remember when you told me you didn't know what you'd do with money at your age?" "Of course I remember. Look at you now. You have your own business. You're raising your grandson. You have savings growing in the bank. At 65, you have more life in you than many people half your age." It was true. The last 6 months had been the most productive and happiest of my adult life. I had discovered a talent for baking, something I never knew I had because for decades I only cooked to survive, not to create. I had learned to use social media to promote the cafe. I had regular customers who came not just for the coffee, but to chat with me and tell me their problems. I had become something I never thought I could be, a successful business owner. "Hope, can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Of course, cousin." "Sometimes I feel guilty for being this happy, as if I don't have the right to be okay after everything that happened." Hope took my hand across the table. "Grace, you have every right to be happy. You have the right to thrive. You have the right to live for yourself. That feeling of guilt is the last remnant of all those years you believed your worth depended on sacrificing yourself for others." She was right. There were still days when my first reaction was to feel bad for spending money on myself, for making decisions that benefited me first instead of others. But every day it became easier to remember that taking care of myself wasn't selfishness. It was responsibility. That afternoon, after closing the cafe, Leo and I walked to the nearby park. It was our daily ritual, half an hour on the swings before going home to do homework. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Anything you want, my love." "Do you miss my mom?" The question hit me as children's honest questions always do. I sat on a park bench while Leo swung gently. "I miss the mom I thought she was, Leo. I miss the little girl she used to be, but I don't miss the pain she caused me." "Do you think she'll ever change?" "I don't know, my love. What I do know is that we can't live our lives waiting for other people to change. We have to live for ourselves and be happy with what we have." "Like the cafe and living together?" "Exactly like the cafe and living together." Leo smiled and kept swinging. At 9 years old, he understood things that many adults take decades to comprehend. That night, while Leo was doing his homework at the kitchen table of our new apartment, larger, with 2 bedrooms and a spacious living room that could fit the furniture I had bought for the first time in my life, I received an unexpected call. It was Jessica. "Mom, can I talk to you?" Her voice sounded different, tired but not aggressive. "Hello, Jessica. I know I have no right to call you after everything, but I wanted to tell you something." I waited in silence. "Mark left for Austin with another woman. He left me with nothing. I'm living at a friend's house with just 2 suitcases. I'm sorry," I said, and it was true. I took no pleasure in her misfortune. "Mom, I realized that I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my marriage. I lost my son. And all for money that wasn't even mine." "Jessica, why are you calling me?" "Because I want to apologize. Not because I want something from you. Just because I finally understand what I did." There was a long pause. "For the past few months I've been working, cleaning offices. It's the only job I could get after the whole scandal. And you know what the hardest part is? All the money I make is barely enough to eat. And it made me think of you, eating rice and beans because I stole everything from you." I remained silent. I can never repay the damage I did to you, Mom, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. That I understand I destroyed the only person who truly loved me. Jessica, no, let me finish. I see Leo on Sundays when Eleanor lets me. And he's so happy with you. So secure, so calm. I never saw him like that when he lived with me. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. You're a better mother to him than I ever was, and a better grandmother than I was a daughter. Jessica, we all make mistakes. No, Mom, what I did weren't mistakes. They were choices. Cruel choices I made because I thought I was entitled to your money and your sacrifice. What are you going to do now? Keep working. Keep learning to live with the consequences of what I did. And maybe someday, when I've proven that I've really changed, ask you to let me be a part of Leo's life again. Jessica, Leo will always need you as his mother. Not as the mother I was, but maybe as the mother I can learn to become. After we hung up, I sat in my new living room, looking at the photos of Leo and me that I had framed and placed all over the house. In one of them, we were at the grand opening of the cafe, cutting the red ribbon we had put up as a symbol. We were both smiling as if we had conquered the world. And maybe we had. Our world. I realized that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, nor did it mean allowing myself to be hurt again. It meant releasing the poison of resentment that had been consuming me from the inside. I could forgive Jessica without allowing her to have power over my life again. I could love from a distance without being vulnerable to manipulation. I could remember the pain without living in it. That night, before going to bed, I wrote in the journal I had started during the entrepreneurship course. Today, I learned that you can't change the past, but you can decide what to do with the lessons it leaves you. My daughter stole my money, but she couldn't steal my ability to rebuild my life. In the end, the greatest gift she gave me was showing me that I am much stronger than I ever believed. I closed the journal and went to sleep. Tomorrow was Wednesday, the day to make key lime pies for the cafe. Leo was going to help me squeeze the limes, just like every week. We had a life to build, day by day, decision by decision, and for the first time in decades, the future belonged completely to me. Have you ever experienced something similar? Do you know someone who has had to choose between family love and their own dignity? Let me know in the comments if this story touched your heart. And if this video made you reflect on the value of self-respect, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach someone who might need to hear them.